Who are two artists that you're really into right now, either now or the last couple years?
I'm a little late to the party, but I heard this. I think they're from out here. This band, Best Coast.
Yeah,
Great band.
they have a new album out.
Yeah, actually, and I bought that like a good person should. MGMTs. The MGMTs. I sound like Bush with the internets. Those MGMTs. I like MGMT, M83, all the M bands I like. But I'm a little out of it, honestly. I try not to pretend like I'm hip or anything. I got so disappointed by music for a while, and I don't mean the artists themselves. I just got sick of the whole vibe. And I think there's so many fans right now like me. They're just so sick of this vibe. Listen to this. This is dumb. This is great. This is the most amazing thing ever. And it's not the most amazing. You can only say that's for so many years. This is the most amazing thing ever, and people stop listening. Because what's weird is we haven't had those big records for this particular generation in their 7 to 10 years like every other generation had, like The Clash, Sandinista, and there's something weird about this culture that doesn't really want those bands to rise up to that other level. And I've become super critical of that because I know what that feels like when you don't want to get the bad record review from the cool guy in the beard. But those bands deserve to be played on the radio. Those bands deserve to break through the mainstream. That's how we attack the mainstream. That's how we break down the puppets and the robots and the posers. Stuff that's just straight pop is always going to be there.
Yeah.
The Beatles were competing on the charts with the biggest dreck you ever heard. It's not going to go away. But when we let the posers come in and steal our music, steal our vibe, say you can't do this, you shouldn't do that, don't be that. Oh, but then this guy gets an exception because he's cool. So I'm a bad guy over here, but Bono's okay because he gave the interview to that website, and so now he's okay. All that shit just got to go. It's got to go.
What about this question? If a promoter came to you and said, "Hey, Billy, I want you to curate your own festival." I know you mentioned some of the more recent bands, but other bands that are still around that you still really admire.
God, I don't know. I wouldn't even know where to start. For example, we were just playing in Europe and we ran into the guys from The Offspring. I mean, there's a band I've always respected. They just did their thing, So you have to really step back and look at that. I tend to lean towards the people who do their own thing. I don't always have to be a fan. I just respect people when they do their thing. So I'd be kind of more in that neighborhood. But my drummer Mike, he's 22, and he's the super indie guy. He's the guy who knows like the bear this and minus this and cage that and wolf that, and he says these names and I feel like grandpa, like who? So.
But it's good though. I mean, I would imagine that's probably a good contrast to.
Oh yeah,
we need to bring that influence. And
we need that. That's what I'm saying. Luckily it's I'm the only old fart up there. I mean the rest of them are all getting it done.
But when you're just cruising around in your car, do you listen to CDs? Do you have an iPod with playlists? Do you listen to the radio?
I'm classic rock and classical and 40s.
Oh, okay.
I'm 40s. Classical.
40s. Wow, we're talking like Robert Johnson and.
No. We're talking like Frank Sinatra. Okay. I'm a song guy.
Yeah. Here's a real broad question. If you could change one thing for the world, what would it be?
If I have to wave my hand, it would be somewhere between the exploitation and well, it's somewhere between misogyny, racism, and exploitation of children. So if there's a way to wave the magic wand over all those things, anything that exploits the human race, I think, is I just have a hard time bearing that. Was that a good enough?
No, that was.
Was that broad enough?
I think that would help the world out.
I would build a unicorn, and all the kids could jump on the unicorn, and then all the battered women and everyone could just join together, and everyone would be safe.
Here's a Chicago. Is someone from Chicago here? You're from Chicago. Is this your question about Bobex? Do you go to Bobex?
Don't know what Bobex is. They make their own sausage?
Yeah.
Sausage brothel. Bobex.
You have a place here in LA, right?
Yes, I live here part-time.
What are some of your favorite things to do around LA?
Well, see, whenever I tell my friends back in Chicago that I live in LA, they imagine I'm on this side of the hill.
The Hollywood side.
Hanging with, Kim and Paris, and I have done that. Although I haven't met Kim. But I've learned
Kim Gordon. No,
Kim Gordon don't want to hang with me. What I have learned is the best part about you stay with your friends and you stay in the valley. You hang in the valley, you're all good. You're gonna get treated like a human being, and everyone's cool. And I go to the coffee. Hey, Magic Johnson. Hey, it's like it's all good over there. You come over this side, and it's a free for all. It's the guy from TMZ. Like, what do you think of The Bachelor? I'm like, what? I mean.
It's kind of tough for Billy Corgan to be inconspicuous, but do you ever try to sneak into shows? Did you go to see live music ever?
No, I kind of gave up on the live thing. Sorry.
Just any particular reason?
I kind of got this point where it's like all of a sudden every band on stage was acting like every show was the greatest show they'd ever played. It was like kind of choreographed, jump up and down, pogo sticking kind of stuff, and I was like, that's not what I grew up on. I grew up on bands wanting to kind of capture a moment. When music becomes choreographed like that, I don't know. I just can't roll with that.
Yeah. Who is a band that you have seen live that you've just absolutely been blown away by?
I don't know. I just haven't gone and seen bands in a long time. I mean, you're talking about way in back, or
yeah, just a memorable concert for you that you were just really impressed by the performance.
I saw Iron Maiden 1 week after the Number of the Beast album came out in 1983. That blew my mind. Yeah. And here's the best part. I was probably 83. I would have been about 16. My brother's about 13. Encore, they're playing like Murders in the Rue Morgue or something. Like, oh, dude, And here comes my brother, like running, up the aisle, tugs on my shirt. Mom said it's time to go. I'm like, dude, they're playing. He's like, no, Mom said let's go right now. So I had to leave. I had to leave. Mom made me leave Iron Maiden early. I'm still mad.
But you're forgetting the fact that she was cool enough to take you to Iron Maiden.
No, not true. It was a festival with many different bands. She was over watching Chicago, like in the,
Chicago and Iron Maiden on the same bill. That's impressive. I don't want to set up the question too much, but I wanted to hear maybe a story or two about one of the tracks of your choice off Oceania that maybe has a backstory or that we can leave today and go listen to and kind of have Billy's perspective from it.
Boy, I don't know what to say.
I mean, there's Celestials, the single.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's a really good question. Well, there's a song on the record that I actually wrote here in Los Angeles called One Diamond, One Heart that I like a lot.
One Diamond, One Heart?
Yeah, it's a pretty song. And so when I think of that song, I think L.A. I'm lucky that I've lived in different places, and so like One Diamond, One Heart is a song I would have only written in Los Angeles. That never would have happened in Chicago. So I think that's kind of cool. It's like their places do have that influence over me.
Mm-hmm. Do you sometimes do writing expeditions? Like, will you try to? Have you gone on any kind of retreats for yourself to?
Yeah, we wrote some of the record in the beginning in Sedona, Arizona.
Nice.
Amongst the vortexes and all that, and that was pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, I have these weird fantasies that I'm going to go to, I don't know, Africa and write a song or something. I'm just too lazy. That's the problem.
How many?
I'd rather just sit in my room and imagine I'm in Africa and then write that song. But that's a different song. But
have you toured Africa?
We actually went to South Africa once, and that was pretty wild because everywhere we went, like, this is going back to 2000, so I haven't been there since. I haven't necessarily heard that things have changed, but you can imagine you get there and it's like, whoa, South Africa, wow, you heard all these things, apartheid, Bono, I'm not going to play Sun City and all this stuff that we heard as kids about South Africa and apartheid and the racism, and you get there and you drive in, and the driver, there's like there's kind of like a little city to the right off the highway, and he points and he goes, "Don't go there." We go, "Why?" He goes, "That's controlled by the drug lords. Like the whole city is run by the drug." He goes, "Police no go in there, right?" So then you get to your hotel and it's completely surrounded in barbed wire, like 20 feet high barbed wire with armed guards outside. It's like, welcome to the South African Hilton. You know what I mean? You're like, whoa.
That's almost like Chicago in the 30s, probably, right?
Yeah. So people were lovely. But then we had weird stuff like we came out of a restaurant. Our security guard was a African-American gentleman. He had at one point played in the NFL. Big guy. Came out, the guy starts yelling, call him every, N-word, all this stuff. Get out of here, go back to America, da-da-da. And you think like, whoa. And we'd been told everybody in there carries guns. You know, it's like, don't mess with anybody, don't say anything. Now, if it was, in L.A., the guy, there probably would have been a fight, right? We just kind of sat there and took it. It's attacking our guy. Getting to drive away. You're like, whoa, what was that? Next day, a guy who was married to a CNN producer was murdered in the exact spot we had been standing arguing. I mean, the exact spot 24 hours later. And so you're like, whoa, this is great. So beautiful. Probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. So yeah, we've been all sorts of crazy places.
Do you the tour coming up later this year, is that going to be the States, North America? Are you going to go abroad as well?
The situation with the world economy is really changing the dynamics. So, like Greece is melting down, Spain's melting down. I mean, it's going to affect everybody. So, for all we know, like you could say, oh, we're going to go to Europe and blankety blank. For all you know, there's not going to be anybody there who can come see you play.
Right.
Because I got to worry about paying their electric bill. So we don't assume anything anymore. We just, if it's there, we go. I always say to fans, it's like, make it happen and we'll go. I mean, that's definitely in the Pumpkin tradition. We've been everywhere. I think I've been to 32 countries in my life with the band, and the band's international appeal and reach is crazy. And, and now with the internet, people are listening in China and places that they're not supposed to be listening. So probably for good reason, but
I know we got to let you get out of here pretty quick. I wanted to just touch on the record a little bit more. How many ideas or concepts, or maybe even complete songs, did you go into the studio with? I'm always curious how you whittle it down to the 13 tracks.
There was probably in the whole Cheer Garden process, I think we're probably up to somewhere like 70 to 80 ideas, not all complete songs. And so I had that to draw from, plus all the stuff that I wrote for Oceania. But then we get in the studio, and I was sure that, let's call it Song X is going to be on the record. Mike's on the drums. We start recording it, whatever, and I go, nope, throw the song out. Gone. Goodbye. And I'll write another song right on the spot. Because I'm listening to this song thinking, it's good, but I can write a better one right now. And I'll just write a new song.
Yeah.
We'll just put that one in. And there's probably about 3 or 4 songs in the record that are like that. I just wrote the song right on the spot. Like, forget it. Let's do a better one.
Is it Billy Control Freak, or do you take input from your other band members right now?
It's like, I always feel, I don't mind you asking, but I feel weird to answer this question. It's like, well, you're a complete monster.
I certainly didn't mean it like that.
Have you toned down the monster? Some of that came from being in a band with drug addicts back in the day. So you're control freaking over drug addicts. You do the math. I mean, you have to try to kind of figure out when they're not on drugs to get them in the studio.
Right.
The band now, I mean, everyone's so great, such lovely people. They really care about the Smashing Pumpkins and the future of the Smashing Pumpkins, and even on top of that, the legacy of the Smashing Pumpkins, and they respect the old band and what the old band accomplished. So you don't need to control freak, because everybody just shows up and does what they're supposed to do. My job is to drive it from the inside, write those songs, push those ideas, come out here and tell you about it. That's my job. But they're definitely doing their job, because this album would be half as good as it is without them. There's no way in heck.
Well, you're very intelligent and diplomatic, so I think the rumors about you are far exaggerated.
No, but
you know the reputation
I'm
that
crazy.
you've had.
No, I'm crazy. I mean, don't jump the gun on that. But I'm the kind of crazy I am is not the crazy that people think I am. That's the difference. You know what I mean?
The one that gets out to the media, that the rumors and shit.
Well, look, if anybody ever watched like Andy Kaufman, Man on the Moon, stuff like that, I just play with that stuff. And I was playing that stuff in my 20s. Some jerk walks in a room, he's already got a bad attitude, he doesn't like my album. I just play along. Mm-hmm. It's like somebody comes in and thinks I'm a drooling idiot. I just play a drooling idiot. I don't care. Let him write, oh, he's an idiot. Okay, great. I think it's funny. Now, you do that long enough, people actually start to believe you're that. But what I would say to people is, if I am all those things, who's the person that's talking to you now?
Exactly.
Is this just another act, or was that an act? Or that's what being an artist is. I don't have to be anything. I don't have to be anything for anybody. I've had people walk in and say, you owe me. I bought your 1 CD.
And I only like 2 songs.
Yeah. I don't know anybody anything. I don't know anybody anything. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I think everybody in this world, if you want to get on your Facebook and you want to wear a weird headdress and say you're into Satan and you get 10 followers and that's your deal, good. You don't need me and I don't need you. I'm not going to play that game anymore, you know what I mean? Because there's something, I think deep down, and I say fans with affection, not like condescendingly, I think fans deep down really don't want to see the people they admire begging for something. And that's what I mean about the different fan relationship. Like, look, I want you to buy my record. I think it's really good. If you don't, life goes on. I don't think fans deep down want to see me make something up, say the thing to you to get you to psychologically believe something about me which is or isn't true. I don't think that's why people love bands. They love bands because bands say F off to everything. That's the whole point.
Well, and I like the fact that, speaking of the fans, that you are accessible. You are at Billy on Twitter, which
That's
is
right.
the equivalent to having like John at Hotmail. That's amazing to me. I've never seen someone score such a simple and beautiful.
Dude, if I
Twitter
knew the
handle.
kind of trouble being at Billy was going to cause.
I've heard the story, but do you want to tell it really quick?
Well, Twitter's taking off, and of course, everyone started going, "Do you tweet?" And I'm like, I don't even know what they're talking about. I'm living in my little weird control bubble.
You're like, no, I'm drug free.
I'm in my control pod, controlling my bands, and sorry, I just had to make that joke. So somebody's like, you really should get on Twitter. I check it out. Oh, it seems kind of cool. Nice way to communicate. So like everyone else, I put in, who do you want to be? At Billy Corgan is taken. Okay, so I go to at Billy Corgan, and it's some guy pretending he's me. It's not like some guy named Billy Corgan who lives in Albuquerque.
Does he use your picture? Did he have your picture?
Yeah, it's like so we contact Twitter and say, we'd like to get at Billy Corgan. They say, well, we have a policy, we don't do that. I'm like, okay. So they change at Billy Corgan to at not Billy Corgan. Okay, don't ask me why.
Yeah.
And in exchange for me not causing a fuss, they give me at Billy, and they go, actually, this is a really big deal.
Yeah.
And I think, okay. Now, at that point, Twitter was like what Twitter was 3 years ago. Now it's, so now I get the haters gonna hate, right? How the heck did you get at Billy? And then they list
I'm Billy.
the Billy. No, they list the Billies that are more deserving of at Billy.
Like who? Joe Armstrong?
Okay, Billy Joe. You got Billy Joel. You got Billy Idol. Billy Zane.
And you tweet
Some
quite
guy actually yesterday said, I was telling this story and saying Billy Holiday, and I'm like, well, that's a different spelling.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fair. And you, how do you like Twitter in general? You've been on it for a couple years now, a few years.
I go back and forth. I think it'd be stupid to get off it now, but sometimes it's more harm than it's good. What I look at it now is I want to just use it to help other people, So like if I do stuff about my wrestling organization, that gets the people in our organization work, excites people to come to the shows because it's its own economy. I like to retweet things about other bands, other artists I admire. And okay, typical. Then I get the guy writing, you retweet too much stuff.
Everyone's a critic, right?
Unbelievable. You can't win in the social media world.
It sounds to me like you love and hate because you've mentioned a lot about reading reviews or getting the positive and the negative, and there's kind of a love-hate relationship with that for you, it seems like.
Well, I think that when you've been around a long time and no one's really figured you out, you kind of get generally just grumpy about it all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As I've said to a few journalists, why am I still here? Why am I still here? How is it that I'm still here? Why am I still here? I just think social media world rewards true idiots, right? The true idiots get really rewarded. And people who have like a real opinion and are willing to stand up for the opinion, you're not going to get as many Twitter followers because that's not why they're on Twitter. Ultimately, most people are on Twitter to put themselves over, to use a wrestling term.
Right.
And, please retweet me for my birthday and all that stuff. So God bless. It's all good.
I want to let you go on this question because I know we're videoing this, and I know a lot of your fans and upcoming artists admire you. Do you have like a general piece of advice or a nugget that you might maybe was given to you coming up as an artist that you pass on to other artists?
One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from my daddy, who said, just be yourself. And I knew what he meant by that, And anytime an artist comes up to me and says, I want to make it in the record business, what do I got to do? You're never going to make it if you're like somebody else. You might make it for a week, a year, 2 years, but you're just somebody's bitch at the end of the day. You got to be your own person, and I don't care what you look like, where you come from, transsexual, alien, lover, hater. You just got to be yourself. The public, consciously or unconsciously, picks up on whether or not you're truly real. Now, there are people they will celebrate for being fake, but that's a different game. They like watching like sort of the dress-up version of it all. Like, oh, look, dress-up robot number one is wearing this costume. How cool. For the rest of us, it's about real. And then secondarily, now the thing I would add to that is in the new world, the emerging technologies and social media, you're going to have to build your own world. And what I mean by that is they're not going to stick around just because you got one good song. You're going to have an opinion. You're going to have a reason. You're going to have to build your own network of people who support you and you support them. And once you see those systems start to click into place, and then this guy's system and this girl's system are able to put together and cross-promote their own shows and X the old record business right into extinction where it belongs, right? Okay, that's real power. That's real power. It'll make the old DIY power look like the Stone Age. Once that kicks in, look out, buddy, because then the real artists are going to step forward, and anybody will be able to participate in the process, and it will be a qualitative argument and not a girl who has to take her shirt off to get attention, to get enough followers to talk about her shitty demo that she compromised and sold her soul with and had to sleep with the guy at the record company to put out one song, and then she disappears, and you see her working later at the coffee house just down the street.
Brilliant. Everybody, ladies and gentlemen, Billy Corgan. Thanks, man. That was great. Thank you for your time, buddy.